Councillors, evening everyone. The time being 6 p.m, I will declare the opening of this ordinary council meeting. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Wadandi people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their culture, and to elders past and present, their descendants who are with us today and those who will follow in their footsteps. Record of attendance, we have a leave of absence from Councillor Kitchen and Councillor Sharp is an apology. Is there any applications for a leave of absence? Councillor Terrantroy, what month?
September.
September, leave of absence for Councillor Terrantroy. Councillor McCleary?
I've got a question here. That's item 5 on the agenda item question time.
Apologies. This is the record of attendance and previous approved leave of absence. So I will take note of that and we'll get back to that shortly. Response to previous questions taken on notice. There is none. Public question time. I do have some questions submitted. The first are from Mr. Brian Hasty.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors, CEO and staff. Question 1, how does the council plan to incorporate feedback from the recent community perception survey into future initiatives?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hasty. The Shire uses the Community Perception Survey to inform a range of current and future considerations, including our staff resource and budget allocations, overall priorities and operational approaches. Following completion of the Community Perception Survey every 2 years, the Shire firstly examines the trends and changes over time to understand changes in community needs and priorities, how and where we are improving or not. So essentially, we use the Community Perception Survey as a benchmark for comparisons over time. Secondly, we examine areas of priority and the highest need for improvement, and these then are included in initiatives in the corporate business plan and next annual budget. And just lastly, to add to that as well, the Shire is currently developing the inaugural Integrated Growth Framework following community visiting workshops. The Community Perception Survey also allows council to make informed decisions on the community's vision and areas that require attention.
Can you provide an update on the progress of the Strategic Community Plan 2023 to 2033?
Yes, thank you. And continuing on about the Integrated Growth Plan, so the Shire is integrating the consultation for the 4-year review of the Strategic Community Plan and developing the inaugural Integrated Growth Framework. The first stage of consultation was the community visioning workshops, focused on high-level directions and the future needs and aspirations of the community. This first stage was completed back in early December 2024. The second and final round of consultation for the Strategic Community Plan review will occur via a series of workshops through the district in mid-February 2025. This information will then be incorporated in a draft new Strategic Community Plan for consideration by Council, likely around May this year.
Before I go to question 3, I must apologise to you, Councillor Sciano. I didn't acknowledge you as the presiding member when I first started my questions. I do acknowledge you now. And
no, that's no worries at all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hasty.
Question 3. What are the key priorities identified and how are they being addressed?
Yes, thank you. As mentioned, we are currently progressing through the process of community consultations and visioning workshops. So we haven't got to the part of the consultation process, but only been able to identify the high-level directions and key priorities identified in the first stage of consultation, which will be tested and refined in stage 2 in mid-February, and then incorporated into the new strategic community plan presented to Council later this year.
Question 4. Are there any upcoming infrastructure projects planned for 2025 that residents should be aware of?
Yeah, so the infrastructure projects are listed as the annual program of works adopted by Council through March to May each year and then funded through the annual budget. These programs of work fall under the following categories: roads, drainage, footpath facilities, public open space, and asset management. Additionally, the annual budget further details a range of ongoing new infrastructure projects, and some of these include the ablution upgrades at Forest Beach, Lions Park and Ironstone Gully Falls, the Dayalup Multipurpose Community Youth Centre, commencement and construction of the new community facility in Dayalup, multi-purpose asset management program, so the data and survey collection for roads, public open space and other structures, the Capel Cemetery, Capel Waste Transfer Station and Capel Depot. Revaluation of asset classes also occurs on the basis of one class per year. Sustainability programs, annual solar system review and upgrades, window tinting, LED lighting, replacement programs. A range of proposed infrastructure projects are also included in the out years of the corporate business plan, including for 25-26. These will be considered as part of the annual budget preparation process. A detailed 24-25 capital works plan is also included in the monthly business paper as an attachment to the monthly financial reports. The attachment provides great details on capital expenses year to date and the status of planned works.
How does the Shire ensure sustainable development while preserving the local environment?
So there are several practices ensuring sustainability occurs while development is facilitated within the Shire. In terms of tree retention, the Shire does a significant amount of work marking trees for retention when subdivisions occur, as well as marking out acceptable building envelopes on rural properties. Further, significant developments are reviewed by the Southwest Design Review Panel, requiring a high level of sustainability to be upheld through good quality design. Considerations include solar panels, passive solar design, promoting tree canopy coverage, and window glazing being applied to developments prior to approval being issued. Lastly, the minimum requirements under the National Construction Code have resulted in greater benchmarks for NATS HERS STARS rating to be applied to commercial buildings.
And question 6, how does the Shire's long-term financial plan 2023-2033 align with the current community needs and priorities?
So the long-term financial plan 23 to 33 aligns with the strategic community plan that covers the same period and details the current and future needs of our community. These long-term plans are broken down into delivery initiatives such as the corporate business plan, the workforce plan and annual budgets. Integrating the planning ensures a balanced and sustainable approach to financial management, facility provision and service delivery. Budget availability is a key consideration, with the Shire using the WA Treasury Corporation's Financial Sustainability Modelling tool, which contains our entire LTFP and considers a range of rating scenarios each year to ensure service delivery is matched with financial capability. By refining and updating the long-term financial plan and our delivery initiatives, the CBP and the annual budget each year, we ensure that we remain informed and ensure that our main informing and decision-making plans are up to date and consider the changing needs of our community. Various consultation programs such as the recent Community Visions workshops, Community Perception Survey and project consultation, like that for the Boyanup dump site, help inform the development of the long-term financial plan.
Question 7, what initiatives are being implemented to support local businesses and economic development?
The Shire adopted our economic development framework in mid-2023 and has been implementing key initiatives since, focusing in 5 key areas: targeted strategic sector development, tourism, agribusiness, business, freight and logistics, ease of doing business, residential and key worker accommodation, enabling economic infrastructure and activity, activating places and localities, connecting and enabling creativity. And in addition to the residential and key workers accommodation, the Shire has undertaken significant work to identify land and strategy for housing in the future. Throughout 23-24, the following initiatives were achieved: full deregulation of retail trading hours, appointed an economic development officer to drive the economic development strategy, ensuring our local planning framework creates the conditions that will encourage local investment, developed a buy local strategy that promotes local businesses and advises of the impacts of buying locally, supported and coordinated approach for a regional tourism partnership with other local governments, focused on developing the Dale-up Town Centre and Dale-up Beach Tourism Precinct, coordinated business development initiatives with the Bungeo Chamber of Commerce. During this time, major commercial retail developments have occurred, including the Coles supermarkets and Red Dot Home in Dale-up. At least 3 other major developments will commence throughout 2024-25. The Capel Economic Development Advisory Committee was also established to provide advice to the Shire in relation to the growth and development of the Capel business and in development of Capel business and the economy, as well as the generation of local employment opportunities within the community. This committee consists of 3 elected members, 2 government agency representatives, 2 business associations, such as the Chamber of Commerce, and 3 local business representatives. In addition to that, Councillor Ferguson and I are also council's reps on the Capel Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Finally, question 8. How is the Shire addressing social issues such as affordability and access to community services?
So cognizant of the cost of living pressures currently being faced by many in the community, the Shire has provided a range of free and very low-cost community activities for the summer recently. These activities were targeted at seniors, youth and support for community events like the Dale-up Jingle and Mingle. In regards to access to community services, the Shire is partnering with Youth Focus in the Southwest, who are commencing a project to assist with young people accessing community services, and new service to be delivered by Youth Focus in 2025. New service will be the Care Navigator program for young people 12 to 25, and their supporters, carers to help them navigate their way into through mental health and health support, specifically for the townships and surrounding communities of Capel and Harvey.
All right, thank you very much for your attention and your answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. I have also received some questions from Penny David, who I notice isn't here this evening, but I'm happy to read these questions that were submitted on time and provide a response. So question number 1 is, what is or will be the co-contribution that the proponent of 148 Skippings Road has or will be making for the Skipping Roads Boynup West Road intersection upgrades? I'm referring to the drainage culvert extensions, curb and bell mount widening that is part of the upgrade works required, should the proponent be granted approval to proceed. Given that council approval for the EIL at 148 Skippings Road has not occurred, are the intersection improvement works proceeding, given that they were only required for the benefit of the proponent? Can council confirm that these works have been removed from the main contract for the upgrade of Boynup, main contract for the upgrade of the Boynup West Road? And the response is that no co-contribution has been made at this point in time. Boynup West Road is currently being reconstructed to the original design specifications of August 2019, with the works budget reflective of this. Should the extractive industry operation proceed, then the relevant conditions of the development approval will be applied, including any co-contribution from the proponent. Question number 2, the FOI application to the Capel Shire Council uncovered that no one at the Capel Shire Council has ever requested the matrix of the sand which is proposed to be extracted at 148 Skippings Road. Given that I have been asking this question since June 2023, will Capel Shire Council please now ask the proponent for a full sand matrix, including silica sand testing, before anything else is considered for this EIL application? Following the item being withdrawn from the agenda late last year, the proponent was requested to provide a particle size distribution report by Shire staff in December 2024. I can say that the Shire has received a copy of that report late this afternoon, but has not had the opportunity to review the information contained. I do also have a third question. This question has been directed specifically to the CEO, and as such, I do not feel is appropriate to answer on behalf of council, and remind that public question time is an opportunity to ask council questions. That is all the questions that have been submitted. Is there any questions, public questions from the floor? Yes, Mr. Horsfall.
Good evening to all councillors and Mr McMile. Again, in regard to lot 148 Skippings Road, the sand extraction proposal. We've recently had a major outbreak of stable fly in Boyanup, initially affecting our horses, which are being eaten half alive, which then spread down the road to affect adjoining cow properties to the point where they couldn't be taken to sale yard because they had to be treated. I rang the Shire Health Department, and I will say that they were very helpful and cleared it within 3 or 4 weeks. But when I rang them, I said that I thought that the stable fly problem was coming from 148 in the extraction area due to the commercial chicken farm which had been set up in the middle of the extraction. He said, we've got no indication that there's a chicken farm in Boyanup. And I said, well, you know, if you come on out here, I can show you a chicken farm. In fact, on the website, this chicken farm, it's a commercial chicken farm, thousands of chickens, supplying a company in Perth that processes high-quality holistic chickens. I wasn't aware what a holistic chicken was, and they're supplying restaurants. And I said, you must know, they must be licensed. They said, well, there's strict regulations on chickens, so we don't know anything about it. But I'll check with the planning. So they checked with the planning. They had no idea. Didn't know anything about chicken farms. I said, well, you must. It's in the middle of an extraction area where you're having on-site inspections by council. I mean, you couldn't have an on-site inspection and not happen to notice 11 40-foot containers full of chickens. And they said, well, we knew nothing about it, we'll come out. We come out, I showed it. He did his investigation, inspected all the properties, and sure enough found what he claimed was a volcano of chicken manure that was breeding stable flies, which was dealt with, sprayed, and all the chickens were removed. I guess the point here being that you're looking at a landowner that's undertaking an EIL that has no compunction at all about not following council rules, not following any protocol that's put in place to eliminate any health problem associated with the extraction. I spoke with the health department at JDAP. They said that we would be under medium risk of health concerns due to the extraction. I said, based on what? At this point in time, what the question you had before, we've not been advised of the soil matrix, even though we've been asking for 2 years, many times. I've been to JDAP, I've been to SAT. We have never got a reply to the sand matrix. Never. So as residents, we don't know what we're up against. We're unable to make an informed decision on the EIL. But I guess that question's been answered. If you've got a report on it, it'll be the first time in 2 years that we've got to see it.
I will try and decipher. Thank you for the question, Mr. Hawthorne. I also understand that you did submit some questions late this afternoon, and being after the deadline, I haven't prepared anything for you, but I will say that we will take the question on notice, which will mean we'll provide a response in the next minutes.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you bringing to council's attention your concern around the stable flies, and in addition to that, obviously reiterate the fact that yes, council did receive the soil matrix today, and so haven't had the opportunity, obviously, to review that, or council hasn't. The Shire staff have received that today, so haven't had the opportunity to review that thoroughly yet.
Yeah, no, that's great news. We've been waiting over 2 years.
So,
And, I own half the hill. The mining companies offered me money for my half of the hill. It's pure white silica, high quality sand, by their own admission. That's why they offered me money for it. I declined because of the health concerns with digging it, so that they couldn't do the EIL on my property. But it's still within 136 metres of my house, so I'm concerned about the health outlook.
Apologies, Mr. Horsford. Do you have an additional question?
No.
No. I might have to ask you, sorry, unfortunately we can't, within our standing orders, it's not an opportunity to make a statement, but obviously we do have your questions that you submitted this afternoon and we'll provide a response to those
understand
topics.
that.
But thank you.
Thanks for that.
I'll ask again if there's any more public questions, but thank you, Mr. Hastings, for submitting questions earlier. Now, back to where I jumped to earlier, applications for leave of absence. Councillor Terrentroy had an application for September. I've received in writing a request from Councillor Sharp for a leave of absence for the month of February, and Councillor McCleary has requested a leave of absence for the month of May. Is there any other request for a leave of absence? No? Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Dillon, and a seconder, Councillor Ferguson. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Declarations of interest. I haven't received any in writing, but obviously, councillors, if you do realise at any point that you have a interest to declare, please make that known and you can fill out a form following that. Notice of items for discussion behind closed doors. There is none. Ordinary council, confirmation of the minutes, ordinary meeting of council, 27th of November. Do I have a mover for those? Councillor Ferguson, and a seconder, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Ferguson? No comment. Councillor McCleary? Is there any discussion on the confirmation of minutes? No, I'll put those to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried, unanimous. Announcements by the person presiding without discussion. You will note in the agenda there is the Shire President's activity report, and you will also notice that I'm chairing the meeting tonight. The Shire President has declared a period of leave and with such is able to delegate the duties and responsibilities of the Shire President to the Deputy Shire President, being that I'm chairing tonight's meeting. I do just have some very quick announcements to make. Just first of all is the milestone made at the Dale Up Multipurpose Community and Youth Centre with the sod turning recently and the awarding of the contract to Perkins. So we're very excited to see that development underway. In addition, and I did mention earlier to note, there are two consultation workshops regarding the Buoyant Up, the potential site for the Buoyant Up RV dump site. The first being February the 10th for the community, and a second business consultation session on February the 11th. And just finally, though it's not exactly what the announcement was made last year, but council hasn't met since the announcement was made at the which event was it? The Bushfire Brigade wrap-up last year. Some will be aware that after 25 years of service as the Shire's Chief Bushfire Officer, Chris Scott has decided to step down, effective on the 1st of June. There's no doubt everyone's aware of the contribution that Chris has made to the Bushfire Brigade and the Shire as a whole over what has been 35 years combined of deputy and as Bushfire Control Officer in the Shire of Capel. And we're grateful for the work that he and others have done, but the leadership that he's shown over those 35 years, and I'm sure many years before that, as a humble volunteer for the Bushfire Brigades in the Shire of Capel. So we thank Chris Scott for that. That is it for announcements from the presiding member. I'll move on to petitions and deputations and presentations. There is none. Motions of which previous notice has been given. There are none. Questions of which previous notice have been given. There are none. Item 13.1, Committees of Council Minutes. Do I have a mover for that item? Councillor Dillon, and a seconder, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Yep, just a bit of housekeeping, this one, taking minutes from some committees of council on board, a couple of meetings of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. All of these were last year. Bushfire Advisory Committee in July, Climate Change Adaptation and Sustainability Committee also back in July, and a couple of meetings of the Audit and Risk Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Ferguson, is there anything to add? Thank you. Was there any councillors who wish to discuss that item? No? In that case, I don't need to give Councillor Dillon the call. All those in favour? That is carried unanimous. Item 13.2, Committees of Council Terms of Reference Review. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mogg. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Terran-Troy. Councillor Mogg.
Thanks, Chair. I move the motion as read. Thank you.
Councillor Terran-Troy. You're all good. Is there any discussion on that item, councillors? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Acting President. I'm actually going to vote against this motion for a number of reasons, and I think the formation of Environmental Subcommittee, while I deeply value the need for the robust environmental stewardship across our Shire, I believe this proposal
Apologies, Councillor McCleary. I think we're on the updates to the terms of reference for the CSAS audit.
Okay.
You're on the next item. Apologies. That's all right. Councillors, is there any discussion on that item? No. All right. I'll put that to Councillor Mogg. You don't need the right to reply. No. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 13.3, Environmental Subcommittee Proposal and Notice of Motion. I see Councillor Mogg's hand up as the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Noonan. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, Chair. I move the motion as read.
Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like to speak to the motion just briefly. Sorry, I'll just get to the page. Okay, so this is requesting the council to endorse the establishment of a new environmental subcommittee to support the Climate Change Adaptation and Sustainability Committee in overseeing the actions, activities and recommendations made by that subcommittee. Now, the purpose of this subcommittee, in large part, is to bring together groups like the LCDC, other environmentally focused groups within the Shire, to give them the opportunity to come together, and in much the same way that the EDAC, the Environmental Development Advisory Committee, in much the same way that provides an opportunity for economic and business partners and people within the Shire get the opportunity to come together and talk about what's going on in their particular realm. This gives a similar sort of environment for people who are concerned about the natural environment and rehabilitation, the opportunity to come together and to share the experiences that they've had, the things that they are doing, and to learn from each other. And obviously that will provide the opportunity for a better coordination between the different groups, so better communication, better coordination, areas where they can cooperate to achieve better outcomes for the whole of the Shire. Now, often people in these groups feel, quite understandably, at the anguish of loneliness in the sense that they feel as though they're just a small group. There's only half a dozen volunteers who regularly turn up, and that the tasks that they have are so daunting that they can find it overwhelming. So a large part of the purpose of this group is to provide them with that forum where they realise that they're certainly not alone, that they can get a better understanding of what other groups who are similarly engaged in the environment and in rehabilitation are doing, and as I said, coordinate their actions and in a way to assist each other and provide a better outcome for the Shire. So it's not so much, from my point of view, the importance of this committee is not so much that it's to advise us, council, because those groups do have the facility to do that, to make reports. Certainly we will be better informed if this committee is established, particularly the chair and the deputy chair. But it's, I think, the key, one of the greatest values of this, and certainly our Shire officers will be better informed about what's going on, and certainly it's a daunting task for a small number of officers who are involved in the area, which, we're a very big Shire and they've got a lot of challenges. So I think that it is a very good committee suggestion. It's by establishing that forum for those exchanges to take place. I think it's not putting an onerous burden on the Shire in terms of the administration of the committee. That it provides the Shire officers, Shire's environmental officers, the opportunity to have everybody in the room at one time, which is another valuable opportunity that this committee would provide, subcommittee would provide. So I'll certainly be supporting, and I'd encourage other councillors to do so as well. Thank you, Mr. Deputy President.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the item? Or is there any other discussion on the item? Councillor McCleary.
I'll get it right this time. Look, I've got to speak against this motion. The formation of an environmental subcommittee, while I deeply value the need for robust environmental stewardship across our Shire, I believe this proposal is both unnecessary and counterproductive for the following reasons. Cost and resource implications. First and foremost, the establishment of a new subcommittee imposes additional administrative and operational costs, despite assurances to the contrary. Even if these costs are initially absorbed, they will inevitably manifest in staff time, meeting facilitation and other indirect costs. Our CEO has already clarified there will be no additional funding allocation for these initiatives. This creates a significant risk of overstretching existing resources and diminishing our capacity to address other pressing audits. Instead of creating a new layer of bureaucracy, we should channel our limited resources into enhancing the existing Climate Change and Adaptation and Sustainability Committee of Council, which already handles environmental issues effectively. I believe the CCSA Committee of Council that is well equipped to address environmental concerns. Adding a subcommittee would duplicate efforts and dilute the focus of the Council. It risks creating confusion and inefficiency in our governance process, leading to slower decision-making and fragmented efforts. If there are gaps in how the current committee operates, I propose we address those directly rather than build redundant structures. Enhancing the capacity and efficiency of the existing committee is a far more cost-effective and practical solution. Inclusion and diversity of perspectives is the other issue. Diversity of our Shire encompasses a wide range of environmental challenges, from agricultural, land management to urban development, Indigenous heritage preservation. Additionally, our Shire's economy is shaped by diverse industries such as mining, tourism and agricultural pursuits. Each of these sectors has unique environmental consideration that must be addressed thoughtfully and inclusively. A subcommittee may unintentionally narrow the scope of input, limiting opportunities for these vital sectors and stakeholders to contribute meaningfully. For example, mining concerns over land rehabilitation and sustainable resource management. Tourism protecting natural assets while supporting economic growth. Agriculture balancing soil conservation, water use and biodiversity. Our existing committees and Shires processes already has the flexibility to consult broadly and include diverse voices such as LCDC and those things. So we already go through that process in our current format, and I don't think we need to single out a specific group when we should be involving all encompassing. We can't be dynamic in that change of engaging with our community if we set a subcommittee. So instead of forming a new subcommittee, I propose strengthening the current committee by providing additional resources where possible, creating an issue-specific working group when needed, drawing on expertise and stakeholders relevant to each environmental challenge, which I think we already do anyway with consulting with the LCD, hosting regular forums or consultations to engage in the broader community, another thing that we already do. These approaches would achieve the same goals as the proposed subcommittee without incurring unnecessary cost or complicating our governance process. In conclusion, while I commend the intent behind this proposal, I firmly believe that creating an environmental subcommittee is not the best path forward. By focusing on strengthening our existing structures and engaging stakeholders as we do now inclusively, we can achieve better outcomes for our environment and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Was there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Shire President. It's actually a question. I do note, and I did read the report, that the staff recommendation or the staff report says there's no financial implications relevant to this proposal, but Councillor McCleary, I think, has made a reasonable case that there is, in fact, some additional financial implications. I just wondered if the CEO or yourself had any comment on that.
I don't have any additional comment on that myself, but I might just pass to the CEO, though I do think that much of that is dealt with in the item. But if the CEO would like to make comment or answer that question.
Excuse me, through you, Chair. When we report on matters, we tend to try and identify where there are standalone budgetary considerations. Councillor McCleary is obviously correct in his observation in that nothing that we do comes at a cost, even if that is an opportunity cost that we do something rather than something else. So, in the establishment of this, we have a governance structure within our governance and CEO areas that handle all of the committees of councils, including the existing subcommittees. So we do have a mechanism to be able to support another committee, noting that that also includes administrative and officer time.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and Mr. Acting Shire President. I actually have another question arising from this, and taking note of the very detailed submission that Councillor McCleary's made. Could we give effect to the broader perspective of impact from various sectors in the community by the enhanced consultation and referral mechanism that he's suggesting? Is that arguably a workable alternative that may in fact be more effective? Thank you.
Councillor, I'm just wary that you're suggesting an alternative or a different approach to the particular issue that's on the table now. And while I appreciate the comments from Councillor McCleary, and that is a perspective you can take on how to approach these types of issues, I don't know if it's appropriate for the CEO to address an alternative approach to the situation, unless someone is here this moment to change the current terms of reference that are in front of us. That is the discussion for tonight, is the terms of reference that are in front of us and the proposed function and format of the subcommittee. If that perhaps partly answers your question.
Yes and no. I understand the dilemma, and we'll move on and deal with the matter on the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Look, I do understand the intent of this item, and look, well done to Councillor Mogg for bringing it forward. At the time when we were discussing her motion, I didn't see it as overly critical to the running of the Shire, but I was happy to go along with it at the time. Sort of in retrospect, I probably understand where Councillor McCleary's coming from. We're aiming pretty high, and I think it's going to come down to involvement. I mean, we're talking a couple of councillors who are already on the CCASC committee. We're talking 3 members of staff at meetings. We're talking getting a member and a proxy from 3 local community groups who I know are all very keen, but, you know, time is limited. And then potentially a member from DWER, DBCA, Parent Naturalist Partnership and Geocatch. And I mean, I'm questioning how often anyone from those bodies would be at meetings. Just wanted to put that out there. I understand the intent. I am a bit like Councillor McCleary in terms of stretching precious resources within the staff, and I'm still a bit undecided which way to go on this particular item.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? I think I'll just make a couple of comments. I'm sort of leaning more towards what Councillor Dillon said, and I am in 2 minds with this because, and something that Councillor Noonan mentioned, the Economic Development Committee, and I think the 2 are quite comparable about how they bring together different stakeholders from various different, sectors and things, and they there are some similarities, and then I start to think about the differences between the 2 committees and the difference in where those particular 2 pillars of our local government are in regards to sustainability and in regards to economic development, and think that the EDAC is backed by a range of economic development programs that are managed by the Economic Development Officer, and the EDAC has a role in discussing those those strategies. And then in comparison, the conversation around that the intent of this committee is more focused on bringing together various groups in a communication between one another. And that's where my initial concern has always been with the subcommittee, is essentially what is the goal in some way. And subcommittees should be set up focused on particularly steering a project or some sort of aspirational goal. And that aspirational goal in that project should be the carriage of the CSAS. But perhaps the CSAS hasn't reached its full potential, and therefore I don't think really has the requirement for the subcommittee to bring together those particular groups, because the CSAS, I guess, apart from some of the lower hanging fruit and a lot of the work that's been done since Kingsley Gibson, now Shire President of Denmark, set up that committee back in the 2010s, that has done a lot of what it originally set out to do, and is doing a lot of redeveloping in what it means now. And obviously, that committee has also taken carriage of the coastal subcommittee, which has been the outcome of the community, the request from the community from the outcome of the consultation around the CHRMAP. It has a very specific project that it's steering. And I think back to the way we typically deal with, at a legislative level, the issues of climate change and targets. And I mean, last year, so in 2024, we had the Climate Change Amendment Bill travel through both houses of Parliament, with the focus of legislating the need for targets, net zero targets. And the methodology, or the concept or the format for how they do that is by sector. So leaning on to what Councillor McCleary said, my real concern is that this subcommittee is a subcommittee of environmental groups talking to environmental groups. The way we deal with climate change and future goals towards net zero is we look at sectors, consulting with sectors to go back to a goal. So the climate change bill actually sets out, this is what the local government sector needs to work on to do to get to net zero. This is what the energy sector needs to do. This is what the transport sector needs to do. Those sectors consult back to a single, consult back to a state government and a minister in charge of looking after that. So when we talk about the Environmental Committee, that raises the question of, okay, well, how do we represent, there's no representation for the agricultural sector in this Environmental Committee, the people who actually rely on or are affected every day by a changing climate or when it rains and when it doesn't. And the other sectors in that as well. You know, there is an economic impact and vice versa when it comes to environment and climate change. So having loved what the EDAC does and the way that brings together the business community and works together with the Shire to deliver those projects, I love that model. I thought that was kind of what this originally was, and now I'm feeling like it's a bit more of a opportunity for communication between the environmental groups, and that's not going to see outcomes. The CSAS committee needs outcomes. It needs to get on with actually developing and delivering some strategies, and we've invested in the workforce plan in having a sustainability officer focused on that, and we've made some contributions to the corporate business plan in identifying energy usage and identifying what we can do as a sector and as a business and a corporate citizen. So I'm not really seeing the vision here, and if someone can convince me the vision and what the outcomes of this will be, I'm still on the fence. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the item? Councillor Taran-Troy?
Look, when I first read this proposal, I thought, yes, will it really? We've already got established environmental groups that are going to get together to advise the council committee that already sits on environmental issues. How is it going to increase community engagement and activation? Because these people are already talking to each other and already activated to do stuff in our community as an NGO and to do stuff for the community and for the environment. So I also was concerned about the fact that when it says that this subcommittee won't cost anything, well, it actually does, and it costs within staff. However, I've also got the flip side of that. I'm thinking, and I'm a little bit torn with this one too, because the whole point of council and councillors is to represent the community. So if, I need more convincing about how this committee would actually do any benefit good that we don't already know about. Because, I mean, there's nothing stopping from any of these NGOs, like these organisations, coming in and requesting to do a presentation to the existing environmental group, sitting council, the internal council meeting for environment. So I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taran-Troy. I did see Councillor Ferguson's mic go on. I will warn you, I think your questions were very much a contribution to discussion. So
No questions. Technically, you're Mr. Acting
I did
Shire
accept
President.
them as questions, I guess. Yes, Councillor Ferguson, you haven't spoken.
Well, thank you and for your good grace. Look, I'm somewhat ambivalent about this matter as well, but my view is that notwithstanding the reservations that have been expressed, that in an overall sense, involving the community in the process is generally not a bad thing, notwithstanding the fact you might not get ultimately the tidy outcome that might have been preferable had you kept it tighter and more restrained. So my view is that this is worth a shot. It's worth a shot. If it turns out to be, and polite words almost fail me, but if it turns out to be, a shambaholic opportunity for particular interest groups to gain oxygen or attention of councillors and what have you, well, we can disband it. That opportunity presents itself in whatever time frame we choose. So I'm a bit inclined to move towards or vote for the support of this subcommittee, even though I'm very respectful of the other points of view expressed, and it's not like I'm sort of, going to jump on the table and throw my hand in the air, but nonetheless, I will support it because I think it's probably worth the opportunity to give the community more engagement and see if it does in fact work. If it doesn't, it's within our capacity, within our remit to disband it with the motion of council. And so I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Noting you're the last councillor to speak, I'm going to give Councillor Mogg the right of reply to close discussion on the item.
Thank you, Chair. So my intent bringing this together is seeing how these subcommittees work, strengthening communication between stakeholders in our Shire. This is what I'm requesting with this one. A reminder that the Climate Change, Adaptability and Sustainability Committee is made up of council only. And I've been on that committee for 5 years now, and most of it discussion is what happens in this establishment in our Shire, not to the community groups out there to environment related. So this subcommittee, I would like networking to happen, communication between stakeholders, a representative from each group who would like to nominate to come together. And reminder, it's only 2 meetings a year, just 2 meetings. Be a voice so that they're valued, they're heard on their issues. I had a person in Dalyellop worried about the fairy tern birds that were nesting on the Dalyellop centre there. Who do I contact? Rosina. I put her into a communication group, into new staff. Instead of being a he said, she said situation between people and staff, we all bring together communication and share concerns. These groups then can know who's who in the community, which staff to talk to, ask for, and then councillors know what our concerns for the environment are in the Shire. I ask each councillor, if you're concerned about environment issues, this is a motion that you need to support, and support your constituents in the Shire, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Mogg. I'm going to put the item to a vote. All those in favour? And those against? The item is carried 5-2. Item 13.4, Corporate Business Plan 2024 to 2028, Quarter 2 reporting, July to December 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ferguson. Do I have a seconder? Seconder, please. Councillor Dillon. Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Acting Shire President. I'll move as printed. Thank you.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Thank you to staff for working on this particular item. For the record, only a couple of items that were considered at risk, which is the main thing. A couple that were overdue for good reason. Excuse me, a couple at risk, mainly due to hiring in one particular situation, and a handover between departments within the Shire. But that looks like it will probably be taken care of in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Is there anyone else who wishes to discuss the item? No. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Shire President. I just support what Councillor Dillon's had to say. I just think the changes I can see between the reports that you look back into even last year, to the 23 reports and to the 24 reports, and what we're seeing now, I can see a more resolute, shall we say, more disciplined approach to what's happening in council, and I can only generally commend what staff are doing with the support of council and the executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Item 14.1, Local Planning Policy 6.9, Rural Pursuits, Considerations and Final Adoption. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCleary. Apologies. I will just go back to my formalities. This item, so this item was deferred from October, which means that it needs to pick up from where it left off. Which, here we go. I've already spoken on it, and I need to fix it. Yeah, which I can't do. All right, apologies. So this item was deferred. It was moved by Councillor McCleary and seconded by Councillor Mogg. Councillors who have spoken are Councillor McCleary, Mogg, myself, and Councillor Terran-Troy. So that means any one of those people that I haven't listed are able to speak on the item. I don't need to move it to put it back on the floor. No? Councillor Dillon, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Knowing what a few of us know about this particular item and knowing that I'm not fully across any mooted changes, would it be preferable, as much as I hate doing so, deferring the item?
Would you like to move the procedural motion, which I'll just get the correct... 12.1 procedural motion that the motion be deferred. Councillor Dillon, are you moving that the motion be deferred?
That's the one I was after.
Yep. There'll be no debate on that. However, I think as a mover, you are allowed to make a comment if you wish on the deferral.
Only probably as question as much as anything, Mr Acting President. Will I be able to speak to the item when it finally does return?
You were just putting up your hand to move a procedural motion, so you haven't spoken on the item.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is, that's, Councillor Dillon has moved a procedural motion. Is there a seconder of that procedural motion? I'll second that motion. There's no discussion on that procedural motion. I'll put that to a vote. So,
Procedural.
apologies, yeah. So this is the motion be deferred until the April 2024 ordinary meeting of council. 2025, yeah. Is that for everyone? Not.
Thank you, Talia. Yeah, let's move it to February if that's
Yeah, I won't be here. but
everybody's happy.
I won't be here. That's all right.
Would-
don't worry about it.
Okay.
Sorry, there's no discussion on a procedural motion. Sorry, Councillor Noonan.
A question?
Border, on the border, yep.
Whether there are any implications from an office point of view
No.
about deferring it, so it's not a major. Okay.
It's a policy of council. So deferral just means it won't come in, it won't.
And a second question, if I may.
I'm very cautious. The standing orders specifically say there's no discussion on procedural motions, so we can't discuss. There's no debate on procedural motions. 12.2.
Whether I could ask whether in the time, if it is deferred, whether we could receive some indication from officers as to, or from members, councillors, as to what their concerns might be with this motion. Because I'm concerned that it's already been deferred, and
So as
why are we deferring it again?
As the chair, I will just. So we cannot put that in the motion. The standing orders require that it's a procedural motion for deferral and has to identify when it will return to council. As a chair, I'll say that I believe the deferral is regarding a change that it was originally deferred for, and the reason it was originally deferred is not addressed, and it's there needs to be further work done to address that properly before council can discuss it. It is for the reasons that it was deferred previously. Yep. All right. So apologies to the minute takers. Councillor Dillon, are we happy with the procedural motion?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Mr Acting President.
I've seconded that procedural motion. I'll put that procedural motion to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried 4-3. Three against was Tarrant, Troy, McCleary and Ferguson. That item has been deferred to the February meeting of Council. 14.2, subdivision lots 9076 and 9077 Maidment Park, lot 9113 Hutt Drive, Dale Up Green Patch, WAPC 201009. Councillor Terran-Troy has moved, is moving. Councillor, I'll ask this. So Councillor Terran-Troy, can I ask what you're moving?
I'd like to move the alternate officers recommendation 14.2 PA 302/2024 subdivision lots 9076 and 9077 Maidment Parade, lot 113 Hutt Drive, Dale Up Green Patch, WAPC 201009.
All right, Councillor Terran-Troy has moved an alternative recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor McCleary. Councillor Terran-Troy, you've got the floor.
Okay, so this development, we've got one opportunity to make some changes and to make some suggestions as a Shire Council, because the CEO saw it fit to bring it to Council. Otherwise, he was delegated to just move this development forward. Now, I thank the CEO for deciding to bring it to Council, and I just want to make a note that there's several conditions that have changed slightly and one that's been removed, but just with condition number 7, make it clear that soil condition, not contamination, that's what that condition 7 is about. Also, with condition 9, contamination is the responsibility of DEWA, not the Shire. We can suggest things, but we can't enforce it. It's basically like me deciding to be a pilot and fly a passenger jet when I'm not qualified to do that. I'd be out of my lane. Okay, so also the other thing is that the Shire works from a space of operating in the planning and development regulations, and that's what the Shire staff can do. Also, DEWA approves lands suitable for development, and in non-standard conditions number 23, we've actually got this bit here that will be, we're hoping that will go through, but that's not our decision. This could be challenged. We would like that anyone that buys these lots that are on the area that was possibly contaminated and investigation required, when they purchase it, they will be notified that the lot is classified, the site, as possibly contaminated, investigation required under the Contamination Sites Act 2003. So that gives the buyer information that would be available to them if they're going to buy these lots. We're hoping that will happen. However, that decision that could be taken out of our hands by another authority. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Acting President. Yeah, this is a planning process, and the Department of West Australian Planning Commission have the decision-making process on this, and this is our contribution to it. And what we need, and we've all been made aware through this alternative officer's recommendation of some key points in there, and at least by going down this path, the Shire has put some skin in the game in an advisory way to the West Australian Planning Commission. It'll still be up to them to do the final decision.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Is there any councillors who wish to speak against the item? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. In the 5 years that I've been on council, this has come back, I think. I think this is the third time we've had a chance to have a look at this particular development area, and each time it comes back, it disturbs me more and more, because every time it comes back to council, the developer seems to have shifted boundaries or squeezed lots. Now in this latest iteration, the eastern turning circle, which had previously been earmarked as community purpose land, has been redrawn to include an additional 8 or 9 lots. Now that eastern turning circle in the report from DEWA talks about arsenic and iron levels and acid sulfate soils, and there's talk in other reports about heavy metals and chromium. This is the circle where trucks, having dumped their load or on the way in, would turn. So this was it's part of the site where trucks were every day for decades turning, sometimes in rain, every single report that has been done has come back saying either that it's contaminated or possibly contaminated, requires further investigation. There hasn't been a single report that's ever come back saying everything's good, nothing to see here. Some of you might be familiar with the film Dark Waters from 2012. That's the film about historical contamination and the subsequent health and environmental repercussions caused by DuPont having a tailings dump which leaked into the waterways, and then the death of the environment and the massive increase in cancers in stock that fed from the creek and from people who lived along or in the vicinity. It led to a huge. So it's based on true story, DuPont in the United States, and led to a massive legal case where DuPont finally was forced to acknowledge that they knew about it and that their remediation had failed, and so on. But there's still people whose lives have been irreparably damaged because of that. We're in a similar situation here where we're dealing with a company that was dealing with the same sort of dangerous chemicals, the same sort of dangerous heavy metals, while I absolutely concede that this is not we're not the approving authority. it's not really our call. That goes to the West Australian Planning Commission. Our input is all of, we can make conditions. We could make any condition we want and suggest them, but they're just recommendations. They're not, they don't even, they go to the Planning Commission and to DWER. They can include them or they can just completely ignore them. The developer would probably be of a mind to suggest that they ignore them. DWER certainly have the expertise that we don't have. They will make their own conditions whether we approve this or whether we don't. They will do their own investigations whether we approve this or whether we don't. We can't even enforce that condition 23, which I think is an excellent condition, and I think absolutely should be put on all lots, that that a notice be put on the plan and survey, and any potential buyer notified that this lot is classified as potentially contaminated, investigation required. Now, some buyers might just say, "Oh, yeah, that's terrific. That suits me. I'm quite happy with that," and possibly they'll get it cheaper. In fact, I'm sure it would, in order to shift them, that there'll probably be a special on them. Many other buyers will obviously be a little more sceptical. But I think that it does actually come back on us. I don't think we can morally avoid the responsibility that we have to look after, to represent the concerns of our community and to look after to the best way possible that we can, the health of our community. I've previously expressed my surprise, my bewilderment that any developer would risk the reputational damage that they potentially do have by developing or putting lots on, and that's just in the regular green patch area. It's extraordinary. I find it completely bewildering that they've now included the Eastern Turning Circle. So that they would disregard the potential community reaction genuinely surprises me. However, this is a business decision for them. Obviously, the remediation costs will be part of that. They will be stacking that up against the potential for reputational damage, the potential for future law suits that may or may not eventuate, and then balancing all that on the potential lot yield that they'll see. So, given all of that, what's our role in it? We're here looking at it, and I did a very quick straw poll of it, just a couple of staff members. One staff member, might buy. The other, no. The other staff member wouldn't buy in this area. Staff members who actually know this proposal reasonably well. That scares me. And so from a moral point of view, while I think it's lovely that we try and put in conditions, I morally object to this development. I think that it staggers me that the developer wants to pursue it, given the potential for reputational damage and possible, problems down the track. However, I am listening and have listened to the concerns of members of the community who already live in Dalyellup and who are similarly, mortified that this is still being pursued in the manner that it is, and the bewildering fact that every time it comes back, it gets bigger, and encroaches further and further and gets closer and closer to areas that we know are contaminated. So I'm not prepared to take the risk with this one.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Look, I think Councillor Noonan makes some really salient points, but when he talks about if we're going to look after our community, I think maybe we're looking at the same problem from different perspectives. I think we've got to support this motion as presented. If we know that council's established position was this development was not to happen historically. If we don't vote for this motion as presented, we are effectively just taking our hands off the wheel and allowing the semi to just careen down the hill. We've got to vote for this motion as presented. We've made some amendments to conditions which I think are good. Correct what Councillor Noonan says, that, you know, they can be summarily ignored. I think we've still got to do the right thing. We're also in a position where it's not our remit to worry too much about any potential contamination. That is on DWER, it's not on this council, and it's not on the Shire. We're talking about 146 residential lots. We've got a housing crisis at the moment. If people choose to buy there, knowing the history of the area, so be it, in my humble opinion. This has been pre-approved by the WAPC. We would be mad to take our hands off the wheel, and I would encourage all my fellow councillors, despite good points being made from Councillor Noonan, I think we must approve this as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Mogg.
Oh, look, thank you, Mr Acting Shire
No,
President.
Councillor Mogg.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise that. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I share some of the sentiments from Councillor Noonan and also thank Councillor Dillon for points raised. It is controversial for me. I support the Dalyalup residents, the environment, in my view, and it is very conflicting. But I also would like to acknowledge our Shire CEO, Gordon McMile, for bringing this to council, for the transparency. He could have handballed it, and allowing community consultation on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mogg. Is there any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr Acting Shire President. Look, Councillor Mogg's made a very good point, and that is this could have been dealt with under delegated authority. It's come to council for an open and frank conversation, and it's made us collectively, further from the conversations we had earlier today, as to the limitations of our power in respect to this matter. It's concerning, but nonetheless, that's the reality. And I actually think that it's been explained to my satisfaction, at least, that the issues regarding contamination and potential remediation are handled by another government agency that's got the competency to do it. I'm not so sure that the condition 23 really achieves a lot, but nonetheless, I'll be supportive of the motion, including that. I actually think it would be extraordinary that if it ever got to that stage, that the land was ultimately subdivided, gazetted and approved for residential lots with that sort of condition hanging over it. Either DWA will give it the all clear or they'll require remediation, and that'll have to be done to their satisfaction. So I agree with Councillor Dillon. We just can't let it careen down the hill, totally out of control. We've got very limited and incremental influence over this matter, but at least this is an attempt to try and influence the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? I'm going to just say a few words, and Councillor Dillon and I share a great respect for common sense thinking, and the man knows how I think 99% of the time, but he didn't know how I was thinking tonight, because very out of character to myself, and I completely concur with the sentiments of Councillor Dillon, but Councillor McCleary and I were in this room on the 26th of April in 2018 when Council unanimously rejected this proposal. And South Western Times will say applause broke out and there were 75 people in the audience. And it's not 75 people in the audience, while Brian and Rob, I appreciate you here, which really raises a question about how in our life and in government, or how government works in our state, to the fact where you put something through so many approval processes to the point where the community just stops coming along and then you rubber stamp it. Seen it happen, I'll see it happen again. I'm not going to see it happen this time. So I haven't changed my mind on the proposal. I'm not going to support the officer's recommendation. While this is how I would usually manage something like this, I can't see my view on the proposal changing. If it's necessary, I'll foreshadow if there is a refusal. And though I gave everyone a bit of a talking to today about taking it really easy on the minutes, people. I'm foreshadowing it, so it doesn't need to be resolved immediately. Discussion can continue, but essentially it will be along the lines of, if I get the right thing, that the West Australian Planning Commission is advised that the proposal subdivision, so and so, as detailed on the plan, is that council does not support the West. I'll have to figure this out, but essentially that council does not support the proposed subdivision, citing the reasons being a lack of evidence to show that the site is not contaminated. Essentially, I'll work on that while the debate continues. But that is foreshadowed, so that if this item is lost, council has made a resolution, and that resolution will go back to WAPC. If that resolution's lost, then the item just ends here. But I can't. This is the same proposal in a different form. It's come back. It's not that different. It's really conflicting. It is really conflicting because I think these are really great recommendations, especially the condition 23, the transparency around the possible contamination on the titles. But as Councillor Noonan has very well articulated, the truth is that we have the opportunity to stand here and say that we're not happy with the proposal that's in front of us, and I'm not happy with the proposal that's in front of me. So if council wishes to refuse the item, there's a foreshadowed item, we'll provide something to the WAPC about not supporting the proposal, the proposed subdivision, citing the concern being a lack of evidence that the site's not contaminated. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Who was my mover? Apologies. Councillor Chair-and-Troy, you were the mover, but no other speakers on the item. I'll refer to Councillor Chair-and-Troy to close debate.
Okay, so I moved this alternate motion for two reasons. One, because I've been against this development from the very beginning, back before I was on council. When I first moved here and learnt about this proposed development when I was the convener of SWEC, the South West Environment Centre. Now, one of the reasons I moved the alternate motion tonight was I didn't actually see it until this afternoon. I read it and I went, oh, okay. But what I wanted to do was actually get on record, and this is on YouTube, so anyone can go back and see this, that the Shire staff tried to do something. And yes, condition 23 is awesome because you can't get a developer to admit that something's contaminated, but we've let everyone know that it is potentially contaminated. And I agree that we need further testing on this area before development occurs. So I'm actually imploring that my fellow councillors vote against this alternate recommendation, and we go for the foreshadowed motion by Councillor Shoshano, acting president tonight. Thank you.
And all those against? That is lost 4-3. There is a foreshadowed motion on the table, which I will move. That the West Australian Planning Commission is advised that the proposed subdivision of Lot 907 and 9077 Maidment Parade and Lot 9113 Hutt Drive, Dayalup, as detailed on the plan dated 24th of October 2024, attachment 14.2.2, is not supported. I did have the reason being for a lack of evidence that the site is not contaminated, and council does not support additional lot creation on the east, is it the east turnaround? Yeah, east turning circle. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, sorry, I hadn't quite figured it out. I hadn't figured it out properly in my head. I'm happy to. No, because it's not a lack of evidence regarding contamination. It's a lack of evidence that the site is not contaminated. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That, I know I just mentioned the turning circle thing, but that is what I foreshadowed in the discussion. So I will move that is not supported for lack of evidence that the site is not contaminated. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mogg.
Question, if I could. Do you want to specifically say...
Councillor, I am just...
Eastern
it's
turning
a foreshadowed motion,
No.
which is why I haven't made any changes to it, because I've foreshadowed it in the meeting.
Oh, yes.
But obviously, councillors could make an amendment to this item if they wish, if there was another point 1 or point 2 or something that needed to be added. But for the sake of what I have foreshadowed, this is what I've foreshadowed. So it's been moved and seconded.
Yep.
We can't have any discussion. We haven't entered debate. Just briefly, obviously I've foreshadowed this in the previous item. The concern remains for the lack of evidence around that the site's not contaminated, and I think in elaborating to that, I think Councillor Noonan made a great argument regarding the sites, the additional lots over the eastern turning circle as well. So this is to ensure that we do send something back to the WAPC to say this is council's position on the proposal. Councillor Mogg, you seconded the item.
Thank you, Chair. I support as read. And thank you, Councillor Schiano, for bringing this foreshadowed motion.
Any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Councillor McCleary.
Mine's a question. In the attachments of this report, there's a specific item on page 305 of the minutes on the Shire's website that says the eastern turning circle. And apparently, following a site inspection in March 2018, Department officers of DWER verified the conclusion of previous environmental assessment. It was concluded there were no grounds to indicate that any significant contamination was present, etc. Do we have any other information to refute that?
Thank you. If I could refer that question to the director, or did you want to take? Sorry, what were you just mentioning? Sorry, CEO. Because there was, so
Can we ask Councillor McCleary to repeat his question for the Director?
I'll repeat the question. Well, I will just say, so the question was there any additional evidence? And obviously we asked that question today and in the briefing before council. And the answer that I was given at the time was that yes, there was. And I asked the exact question because I remember the article and I remember the DWER report that came out a couple of weeks before the council meeting saying that the site had been all cleared. And that's why I asked the question earlier today and I was told that yes, there was. So I think the CEO would like to add comment to that.
Through your Acting Shire President, I might just ask the Director to make a comment. I think the Manager of Development Services referred to the Strategic Planning Committee decision of August 24, where there was a further reference to contamination. Can you comment on that?
Yes, through the chair. So the West Australian Planning Commission determining not the subdivision application, that is still undetermined, but in its assessment of the structure plan for Green Patch, made recommendations in 2022 in respect to that plan, which required further evidence to be provided. So the matter was then reconsidered by the Western Australian Planning Commission in through an appeal process, which was in the 9th of August 2023, in which there was again further evidence provided addressing a number of issues, including the contamination of the site. So the modifications were then applied through to the subdivision application, which include boundaries and the extent of the urbanisation of that area. That was presented to the Statutory Planning Committee of the West Australian Planning Commission on the 21st of August 2024, and at that point the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation had advised that the contamination of the site had been assessed and was deemed to be acceptable for the structure plan to progress. Subsequently, as part of the subdivision process, the Department of Environment and Department of Water and Environmental Regulation has also been consulted, as has the Shire, and they have made further recommendations that cite further detailed site assessment and depending on the outcomes of those assessments, decontamination would be required as a condition of subdivision. Thank you, Director. Sorry, I've put you on the spot on a foreshadowed item, but you did very well, thank you. Councillor McCleary, you still have the floor.
That answers my question. I need to sit back and think of whether this needs to be amended.
No worries. I'll class it as a question and we'll come back if you need to. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the foreshadowed motion? Councillor Tarantroy.
I'm really glad that this has happened the way it has happened tonight. I learnt a trick when I was doing my councillor training in Perth, that not necessarily the mover is in support of the officer's recommendation, but they get to speak twice on it. I am for this. I've never been for this development. Thank you.
Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Councillor Ferguson.
Well, Mr. Acting Shire President, I would express my dismay at what we've arrived at. Quite frankly, I go along with what Councillor Dillon said before, that we had the opportunity to keep our hands on the wheel to some limited extent. We've just now thrown out the card, and the advice we just got from the council officer was the advice we heard earlier this afternoon. It's not different. That is, if it's required, those additional tests will be carried out. Now, I'm actually think that we've actually dealt ourselves a bad hand here, and I don't necessarily concur with the fact that we should not have supported the original motion. Obviously, I will support this because there's no alternative, but I will do so with great regret that we didn't actually support the earlier motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the item? Councillor McCleary.
Thanks, Acting President. Given what's been said now in as far as the contamination now, where we were sitting, which we're going to assess the site at a later date, so there's still that option about contamination and cleaning it up and the decontamination process. I think you've got it in a nutshell in saying, for lack of evidence, that the site is not contaminated. I'm of a mind that it should include something about the Dwyer report, but I don't think they're going to do the report. That's up to the developer to do his contamination. So that's still sitting in there as part of the conditions of release of the subdivision. So I think that was still pretty good. And when we go off, and we're obviously in a decision process now that if we don't do this one, we're in no man's land. So this still gives us that. And I'm a bit reluctantly, like John, that I'll support this motion. But it concerns me. I think it'll leave all our conditions out now, so they won't have any relevance in the decision making by the Department of Planning. And so now we're totally dependent on the outcome of Dwyer and making an official review of the site. So that's going to concern me going forward. But look, I'm okay, I think.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Was there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I'd like to thank you for putting forward this alternative motion. I think it's a good one. There's nothing to stop Dwyer looking back on the council minutes, watching the YouTube, looking back on the minutes and seeing the conditions that we have suggested. And they can give them exactly the same due regard that they could have given them had we passed the previous motion. They can take them on board. They can completely ignore them. So it's, once again, it's not our remit. It's not our. We don't get to set the rules. They were recommendations. DWER and the WA Planning Commission can still look at them, they can still see them, they can still take them on board, they can still completely ignore them. So nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in terms of our power between the last motion and this motion. What has changed is that word not. That little word not. It is not supported. So this council, once again, has the opportunity to be the little mouse that roared. And that's what it takes. It takes little acts of opposition where people, and in fact, one of many people in the on the council and in the potentially, if anybody's watching on YouTube, will know that one of the primary community members who has been a champion for this is about 5'0". But she is very shy. She hates speaking in public. However, she has done her research. She has read every single report. She is aware of the contaminants that have been placed in that area, and she has said that it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to potentially put future generations in a situation where they might be exposed to that, if we can do something. So she has stood up, and I think that it's very good if we follow her example and we stand up. And together, the more little mice that roar, eventually, hopefully, the developers will get the message and will do better for the Dalyellup community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. I think everyone has... Oh, Councillor Dillon hasn't spoken. Councillor Dillon, do you wish to speak on the item? Yes, you've got the call, Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Leo, look, I'll throw in my 20 cents worth on the foreshadowed motion that's now before us. I made my thoughts very clear on the previous motion, which didn't get up. However, I would say to Councillor Noonan, it's fanciful to think that anyone involved in this process, now that we have taken our hands off the wheel, will spend half a millisecond looking at the council minutes from tonight, thinking that, oh, they could see what we were thinking anyway. We've taken our hands off the wheel. As presented there, I understand the intent of it from our acting president tonight. If it had the word still contaminated, I'd be happier supporting it, but as presented, I won't be voting for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. I think all councillors have spoken on the item. So as the mover, I'll just close in saying I don't for a second think that council ever had its hands on the wheel. This has been how many years? 7 years that we've been dealing with this application. It's the same application, a different shape. The same things apply. And I think that DWER has and I've heard many arguments today that the departments that are fit to look after these things will do the job they need to do. All right, well then council can sit here and make it known its position on the application. But once I don't think we can get taken to SAT for it, which is nice too. But we have never had our hands on the wheel. And this is a perfect example of how the bureaucratic processes of the WAPC, the Development Assessment Panels, can be used to avoid community engagement and detour local governments. My position's still the same as it was in 2018. We've had a few things through that time as well, but I'm comfortable with the item that is on the table now, and I hope that councillors will support it. So in that case, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried 6-7. 6-1. 6-1. 7's the 6-1. Item 14.3, revocation of local planning policy 6.13, tiny houses. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dillon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Terrantroy. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Yeah, it's sad because we did a bit of work on this a while back and we all felt warm and fuzzy about it, and now we've got to revoke it. Ultimately, the reason this tiny houses policy is being revoked is because it no longer sits arm in arm with the state legislation which has recently come to be. So, yep, sad to see it go. Hopefully, our officers on the planning front will be a little bit forgiving and understanding, as I mentioned earlier in a previous motion with the housing crisis. But yeah, as presented, the tiny houses policy needs to go, unfortunately.
Councillor Terrantroy, as a seconder, did you have anything to add?
No, just that this just makes it easier to, it makes it workable. Thank you.
Is any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? I'll just say it is a bit of a shame. I was very proud of our tiny houses policy. It was a very good policy. In fact, in my travels, meeting with other local governments in my various other roles, I used to tell them about this policy. To say, get on it. You've got to do something about tiny houses. Anyway, I mean, unfortunately, this is the game. This is the game, and state legislation triumphs once again. So, got to support the item. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak on the item? Anything additional to say? Councillor Dillon, you moved, nothing else. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 15.1, financial reports, the 30th of November 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCleary. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mogg. Councillor McCleary.
I'll move the motion as read.
Councillor Mogg. Councillors, any discussion on those financial reports? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 15.2, financial reports, 31st of December 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dillon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mogg. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President, just as presented again. Thank you.
Councillor Mogg. Council, any discussion on that financial report? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Acting President. I had concerns that we haven't moved very far on the capital programs for the vehicle movement, and I'm hoping that we improve on that over the last 6 months of the year, because I'm a bit concerned whether we're going to spend the money in a timely fashion. There's a couple other items in there, but I know we'll be reviewing those in the budget review shortly.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Was there anyone else who wished to speak on the financial report? No. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Yes, just to follow on from Councillor McCleary's comments there. If I read the item correctly, good news, we're 7% underspend on salaries, which is I think a marked improvement on previous months. So that shows where our staffing levels are getting to where they were budgeted to be, and great to see.
Councillors, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 15.3, accounts paid during the month of November 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCleary. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mogg. Councillor McCleary.
I'll move the motion as read.
Thank you. Councillor Mogg. You're right. Council, is there any discussion on those accounts? No. Councillor McCleary, you don't need to close. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. 15.4, accounts paid during the month of December 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dillon. Seconder, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Nothing much to see here. I'll put the item as read.
Councillor McCleary. You're right. Council, is there any discussion on those accounts? No. Councillor Dillon, you're right. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. 15.5, 2023-24 annual report. Councillor Ferguson has moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McCleary. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr Acting Shire President. As mentioned earlier in the briefing, I actually think the quality of this report and presentation is first class. And whilst I have a reasonable understanding of both P&Ls and balance sheets, I don't profess to be a chartered accountant, and I actually thought the way they were presented was excellent. It's comprehensive. It was made visually interesting so that a non-accounting person could actually find their way through it. And I think the detail and the comprehension or the comprehensiveness of the report was an absolute credit. I mean, I actually think that any council, any shire, would be very proud of the quality of the presentation of that report. I've raised a couple of matters in the previous forum about a couple of concerns I had. I won't dwell on them here. We will deal with them in the half-yearly budget review. But nonetheless, I actually think this is very commendable, and it shows, and the point I would make is that the improvement between the previous financial year and this financial year, that is ending 3rd of June 2024, was actually quite significant. And it showed, in my view, a capacity, increased capacity of both council and the staff to deliver to the community in a very professional and credible way. I actually thought the way in which the programs were executed and detailed and the financial arrangements and circumstances provided were, in my mind, of a very high order and very informative. And the community, should they care to access it and read it in detail, I would think would draw great comfort from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Deputy Acting President. Well, I slipped there. Look, it's a good report. It sums up. I've got to keep on reminding myself it's probably about 6 months old since we finished the financial year, and we're looking at the last year. It'll be good to see how it goes forward. Some improvements from the previous year, which is good. So, yeah, I commend this report.
Council, is there any discussion on the annual report? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Acting President. I'd just like to perhaps read part of the recommendation out, because I think it's important that that this doesn't get lost in the sort of whirlwind of meetings that we have where we take things as read. So for people if people are watching online, it's important to note that this is the Shire's annual report for 23-24, and it includes the annual financial report for 23-24. Point 2 notes that there's a general meeting of electors to be held on Monday, the 24th of February, 2025, commencing at 6 p.m. through to 7:30 p.m. at the Jalorup Community Centre. And so members of the public are encouraged to go along to see that and listen to that, participate in that. At that general meeting of electors, you have the opportunity to discuss the contents of the annual report and any other general business that that is required. So it's a great opportunity that electors have to get along and to be more engaged with the activities of the Shire. Having said all of that, I'd also like to echo Councillor Ferguson's comments that the report is very good. It's very impressive. I think that we're in a very good place as a Shire, and I'd like to commend the CEO, both of the directors, and all of their staff for the excellent work that they have undertaken to get us into this situation. So I'm very comfortable and very pleased with the report. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Was there any speakers for or against the annual report? Councillor Ferguson, you were the mover. Would you like to close? No worries. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. And yet, as Councillor Noonan has mentioned, I will note that the general meeting of electors will be held on Monday, the 24th of February 2025, commencing at 6 p.m. at the Jalorup Community Centre. 15.6 Corporate Risk Register Quarterly Report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Terran-Troy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dillon. Councillor Terran-Troy.
I'm one of the councillors that is on the Audit and Risk Committee, and it's really good to see this come every quarter. It also helps to meet the requirements and provide the Audit Committee the opportunity to provide input and identify solutions. So we need this every quarter to help us mitigate Shire risks.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr Acting President. Yes, I concur with my fellow Audit and Risk Committee person across the chamber. Suppose one thing that probably bears pointing out here this evening in our meeting is the fact that we've had some improvement, which I think ultimately this report or register is all about, a change from extreme to high in terms of work health and safety requirements. So that's a positive thing to see.
Councillors, is there any other discussion on the risk register? Councillor Terran-Troy is the mover. There's nothing else to add? No? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 15.7, RFT 24-13, disposal of asset, lot 36, Ilmenite Crescent, Capel. Councillor Ferguson had moved that. The hand's gone up and then gone back down. Councillor Ferguson? Yep. Councillor McCleary is seconding it. Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Shire President. I'll move as printed, but I'll also just like to make the comment that this is a very encouraging, modest development, and I'll have more to say about industrial lands into the future and look forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCleary?
Thank you, Acting President. This is a long time coming. I can remember when we had so many lots in there, and I'm thinking this is the last one, and we finally got rid of it in a good market price. So, yeah, we've got some money, and it's going back into the community for other things. So, yeah, well done, and it's brought another business into town.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Tarantroy.
Just to say that we got 36G more than the valuation, so that's a win for the residents and the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on that item? I'll just say, I don't know if that's a win for the buyer, but this is why council aren't housing developers, because imagine if you had to do a tender every time you wanted to sell a 600 square metre lot in Dale. But anyway, councillors, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the item? I'll give it to Councillor Ferguson to close.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Shire President. Yeah, exactly, but I do note that this development was initiated in, I think, 1985. So it's been a while, but nonetheless, I would think if we did it again in this current environment, we wouldn't have to wait 30 years to sell them all. I think we'd probably wait 3 years. Thank you.
I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 15.8, tender 24-08, enterprise resource planning ERP solution. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ferguson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dillon. Councillor Ferguson.
Look, this is outside my field of expertise, but I've read both this report and the confidential attachments that we were provided with, and I can't find a gap in which I can drive through. So I'm left with the opportunity to support it, and hopefully the implementation as proposed is as smooth as and professional as the presentation from the staff and the consultants regarding this particular massive project. And I look forward to its implementation and recommend the matter to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Yes, this is a bit of a halcyon day, I suppose, in terms of it's the start of farewelling the old operating platform, which has been coughing and wheezing its way through to the finishing line for what, probably the best part of a decade. So what this item is, to anybody watching at home, it's basically we're awarding the tender for our enterprise resource program, which is basically the program that runs the whole Shire, and it's ironic that the biggest troglodyte in the room is seconding a motion such as this. I'll bite my tongue. Look, ultimately, I just want to compliment, this process has been very, very long, but I've been so impressed by how thorough it's been. I think our staff sat back, thought about it, worked it out, what have other shires and other cities done wrong in this sort of implementation, and I think you've basically plugged every hole in the dike and come to a great decision. Slow, steady, considered. Practically everybody in the organisation's been consulted how this program, the one we've selected, would impact them, and it seems like it's you've really brought the staff along with you on this particular journey, and I cannot fault the organisation how you've gone about this. So very, very happy that it's finally in front of us as an item here tonight, and I commend it to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Acting President. I'd like to move an amendment and add an item 3.
Yes,
We've got
thank
a copy
you.
of it.
We have your item 3 on the board. Do you just want to check that that is correct? 3, officers are to provide an update via the information brochure.
There's a bit more just written off to the side of that. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. Via the information brochure, yeah, it's in there. Yeah.
So the amendment is to add point 3 as follows. 3, officers are to provide an update via the information brochure for the project once the contract is signed by all parties. Is that your amendment?
That's a cash flow update. Yeah.
Monthly cash flow update.
Yeah.
Updated monthly cash flow via the information brochure.
That's it.
You're moving that amendment. That amendment's been moved by Councillor McCleary. Is there someone to second that? Councillor Terrendroy. Councillor McCleary, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Councillor Terrence, for backing me up on this one. The reason for this is there's a lot of money involved in this, and it's important that we watch the cash flows because it's a long-term contract, and this will determine future budgets. We're already I'm suspecting that we're going to be underspent and have to carry through some of this, so we have to keep that in mind when we start setting the budget later in this year.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Terrendroy, anything to add? Is there any councillors who wish to discuss the amendment? No? Councillor McCleary, you're good as the mover.
Thank you. Apart from all that, any other issues that Councillor Dillon stated, there's been a very heavy process in determining the outcome and who we would be going with this thing, which I think has been quite thorough. I think we've got a good outcome, and I commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? The amendment is carried unanimously and will become the substantive motion. So the motion will now include point 3. And we'll go back to the substantive motion. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the substantive motion? I'll just add the ERP will be about as revolutionary for this organisation as when Dillo went from MS-DOS to Windows 10. Councillor Dillon, my apologies. I mean Councillor Dillon. But his comments remain true in the fact that this has been the process has gone into getting to this stage has been incredible, and the team and the directors and the CEO and everyone involved in not only identifying or getting a tender and identifying potential ERPs, but the groundwork that has gone into preparing the organisation for an ERP transition. And yeah, there's $4.5 million in the budget over 3 years for this. You've got the tender price there. There is a gap there. We know, and Council's been briefed well on the fact that there will be other costs, whether it be skill related or contract and service related. And I thought that maybe one of the things that I thought gap was a small gap that perhaps was in the item or in the report was sort of what we expect that gap to be. But in consulting with the director, one of the things to also take into consideration is the current expense to the organisation that we have for some of the services that we bolt onto SynergySoft. So I think it was Definitive. So Definitive's one example. It's the payroll tool. That's a separate software package that is currently being slapped on. We already have that. That's a package that we already pay for. It's an expense that we already incur. But the ERP will be able to integrate that third party far better than the way that's integrated into SynergySoft. So there's a lot of costs that carry over as well. We're not just paying for a whole heap of new things and many others. And the reason we're able to do that, and you're able to have a tender in front of you that essentially says this includes all third-party applications and all that, is because we've done the groundwork with strategic directions, we've done the groundwork with data migration, And we're able to actually say, this is the stuff we use now and this is the stuff we need to bring across. So it is a very big project. I think it's a great amendment that Councillor McCleary's proposed around just managing and the transparency of the cash flow, because it is a big project. And it's also, unlike other projects where you can't go out and see the wall go up because it's all happening in the background. So it's hard to sort of see that happen until things switch on. So just very proud of the work that this organisation has done to get us to this place. And I know that the staff love to bang on about how jealous all the neighbours are of how good our ERP process is. And I love to rub it in how good our ERP process is. And who knows, miracles happen. Maybe one day Councillor Dillon will get onto Windows 11. But I just don't think, I'm really proud of the organisation on this front, and I'm glad that it's not over budget yet, so we'll keep an eye on it. But yeah, happy to support the substantive motion. Sorry, is there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Acting President. I'd like to agree that our officers, our IT officers, have done a great job. They have been very thorough in preparing this. 3.9 million is a lot of money over 10 years. It's still a lot of money. I'd like to perhaps make the observation that for an extra 3 million, we could possibly produce a generative AI program that in itself might have an even better return for the organisation. However, I think starting with the ERP is probably a pretty good position. So I will also be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against the item? Or I will hand it back to Councillor Ferguson to close debate. Councillor McCleary's reaching for the mic. Yes. Councillor McCleary?
I think I haven't spoken on this part. So
You've moved an amendment, so you are okay to speak to the item.
Righto. Look, this is going to be a long-winded process, and I know everyone's patting their back, but we've got a long way to go, a really long way to go, and it's got to bed into the organisation. So there's lots of work to be done. Let's not sit back and go, this is just stage one. Got a lot of work. Let's hope we get a good outcome out of it.
Thank you, Councillor. Is anyone else who wishes to speak? I'm going to give the call to Councillor Ferguson to close.
Thank you, Mr Acting Shire President. I just want to pick up on a couple of comments other councillors made, particularly Councillor Dillon, where he pointed out that the crew responsible for doing the assessment internally did consult widely with staff as to the best system, the best methodology, the best way of implementation. And I think that's, really a sign of really, really good management. And I suppose in the end, that's to the credit of our CEO and our directors and our managers and staff generally, that they've taken the view that we just won't impose this, we'll bring it to them with their own support and endorsement. And that's a very commendable way and gives us the best chance of having a successful outcome. That's not assured, but it's the best chance we have. I also make the comment that the previous matter regarding the industrial land development started in 1985, and our current enterprise program apparently was originally purchased in 1985. Now, I don't know whether there's any significant connection there, but maybe this is the new world. New industrial lands, new enterprise agreement or enterprise program, and the new world. I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. I can tell everyone's getting a little tired. I'll put this item to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 16, new business of an urgent nature. There is none. Public question time. There is no one left in the gallery. Motions without notice requiring an absolute majority by council. If there is none. Notice of a motion for consideration at the next ordinary meeting of council. There is none. items for consideration behind closed doors, there are none, and I will declare the meeting closed at 8:10 p.m.
I said the Shire, not the buyer.
Yes, it was a good deal for the Shire. I'm saying it wasn't a good deal for the buyer.
I thought you misheard me as well. I
No.
said buyer.